use that through DMV one of these days, but right now it's free.
Hi, James.
I still go with my other car.
If they're.
I thought it was a lady.
Hi,
I
Ashley.
thought that was a cable
Hi,
company.
can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah.
And what they've been doing all the way up,
Okay, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. We all stand. Flag salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have James on.
Yes.
Okay. So, counselors, is there any consent agenda items you would like to pull out for regular discussion? John?
None for me.
Robert?
No.
James?
None for me, thank you.
We will keep the consent agenda as written.
Oh, did you?
You
Just want to make sure.
I have a correction.
Missed.
I didn't hear that.
I have a correction to one of the items that is on the consent agenda, and that is Resolution 715, 2021. I provided you with the sheet corrected, which is the minimum wage for the utility worker 1 part-time and the temporary summer helper. Those minimum wage amounts that are on the resolution that was in the packet were a little bit higher than what the actual minimum wage is going to be. So I made those 2 adjustments, and that's the amendment that's in front of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does that change anyone's desire? Robert?
No.
Michelle?
No.
Tyler? James?
No,
All right, then we'll continue on. We are going to start off today with public hearings, and we will start with the state shared revenue. I do have a nice script to read. So with that, state shared revenue resolution number 7102021 and 711-2021. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing on state revenue sharing. And we'll move on to the presentation by the budget officer, questions and discussion.
Hi, everyone. This is Summer Sears. I'm the CPA that's been helping out in the finance department for the past couple months and helping put this budget together. It's nice to see you all again. These resolutions, 2 first resolutions that are up for public hearing have to do with state shared revenues. Those are revenues that are brought in by the state and then allocated out to the cities based on very specific formulas that are in statute. The first resolution has to do with a requirement from the state that the city council has to say, yes, we want to receive state shared revenues. If you don't say that, you're not going to get any. So that's the first resolution, is just making the statement by resolution that yes, please, state of Oregon, we would love to receive our portion. The second resolution has to do with the requirements in the statute that in order to receive your allocation or an allocation of state shared revenues, you have to be providing certain services to your community. And those are listed in the resolution. The resolution then goes on to say, okay, of this list of required services, these are the services that the city provides, and that those meet the requirements to receive state shared revenues. Thank you.
Is there any questions or discussion from council?
I have none.
Tyler? James?
none,
Okay, then we'll move on to the House of Public. Is there any public questions or comments? Okay, and if that's the case, then we'll move on and we'll close the public hearing on state revenue sharing. Council will note that we have these resolutions actually in the consent agenda, so we don't need to vote on those now. We'll cover that in the consent agenda. But we will move on to B, the budget for fiscal year 2021-2022. And with that, I would like to open the public hearing for the budget 2021-2022. And we will move on with the presentation by the budget officer, and then we'll do questions and discussions by council.
Hello again, this is Summer Sears. So to present Resolution 712-2021, this is a presentation specifically for the public hearing. The public hearing is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on the version of the budget that was presented and approved by the Budget Committee back in May. We went through that process of creating the budget, presenting it to the budget committee. That was a public meeting, and we had opportunity for comment during that meeting. The budget committee approved the budget as presented, and it is now being offered again at a city council meeting for public comment.
Okay, with that, council, we did have this discussions back in May, but is there any new questions? And I'll go around each one. Tyler?
No.
Michelle?
No.
Robert?
No questions.
Okay, and James?
No questions.
Okay, with that, we'll move on, and I'm gonna ask the public, for those that are online, is there any comments and or questions? Okay, then with that, we will close the public hearing on budget 2021-2022. With that, we'll move on to number 3 on our agenda, resolution 712-2021, a resolution adopting the budget, making appropriations, levying, and categorizing property taxes for the fiscal year 2021-2022.
Hello, Council. This is Summer, one more time, your budget officer. We just had a public hearing on the budget as approved by the Budget Committee. Since that meeting back in May, there have been just a couple things that have come to our attention, small adjustments that we are recommending Council make to the approved budget prior to adoption. And so I'd like to, if it's okay, share my screen and go through those adjustments with you.
Summer, they're not going to be able to see your screen.
Okay.
We do have at least these in front of us. We do have the resolution in front of us if you can point it out.
Sorry, you have the resolution. Okay.
Yes.
So the first adjustment has to do with the administrative overhead allocation. So as you remember, in the budget, there are administrative costs that are then quantified and allocated based on a specific methodology related to expenditures to the other departments within the city. As we were preparing the proposed budget, I'm sorry, was there a comment?
None.
Okay, so as we were preparing the proposed budget, there were some last minute adjustments that we made to that budget, and we did not push those adjustments through the allocation. We didn't take the time to do that at that point. So the primary one had to do with the city manager administrator position that was proposed in the budget. So those additional costs, the admin portion of those, in the budget need to be allocated across the departments. So that will result in additional transfers in and out between your street, water, and sewer funds into the general fund to offset administrative costs. So the street portion is $5,600, sewer portion is $2,200, and water is $2,500 for a total of $10,300. So if we look at the resolution, we can pencil in how that translates. The resolution focuses on expenditures and appropriation of those expenditures. So the transfer in portion you're not going to see. You're only going to see the transfer out. So if you look in the street fund, the transfer line item on page 1 is going to increase $5,600. On the second page in sewer fund, that would increase $2,200. And in the water fund, those transfers out would increase $2,500. Questions about that? That's our first adjustment out of 3.
The only question I have, Summer, is if we decide that we do not want to move forward with a potential city manager, city lead, whatever we want to call it, do we need to go back and re-amend these again then?
I would advise that. So if you make a major change in your operations compared to what was budgeted, the activities that were budgeted, it's always a good idea to look at those changes and analyze how they impact your budget. So in that case, you're not going to be spending as much if you decide to go that direction. So quantifying that and then reducing the allocation would be appropriate.
So we would just in July go back in and revise the budget that I'm assuming to reflect whatever decision we've made.
Exactly. If you decide to go with what was in the budget, then you don't need any adjustments. But if you decide to go a different direction, then yes, I would advise as soon as that decision's made, give your finance team a little bit of time to pull that together, and then they can bring you an adjustment.
Okay.
And depending on that.
Other questions?
And depending on that adjustment dollar amount, would you would either need to call the budget committee back together or not? Is that correct, Summer?
So actually no, the budget committee, at least according to statute, the budget committee is only involved prior to adoption of the budget. So once the budget is adopted, if that should happen tonight, there is no requirement from the state that says you need to reconvene your budget committee and run adjustments by them. You can always do that. You have the option. It's a good way to keep your budget committee engaged, and they have knowledge of the budget. Might be good input, but there is no requirement. It does just have to go through council and potentially a public hearing.
So silly question again, Summer, just a follow-up on that one. So if we were to approve the budget this evening, but we decide on our next agenda topic that we're going to take a different direction with the city manager, whatever it might be coming out of that discussion, I'm assuming we still need to move forward though with our approved budget, considering it's June. I'm assuming it takes effect next month.
That would be my recommendation, only because, as you're implying, it will take some time to, readjust the budget and bring an adjusted budget to you. There are 2 to 3 weeks left in the month, so it is possible. But my recommendation would be to approve the budget and then go through an adjustment process in July or August.
Okay.
What's the total negative operating budget sitting at?
It is the same as it was. So there is no, from the general fund standpoint, the only change is that $10,300. So if I pull up my proposed budget, bear with me here, please. Got my massive spreadsheet available. So we'd be looking at, instead of 147, about 135 for current year operating deficit. So we'd be eating into fund balance by that amount.
Other questions?
Other questions on that adjustment?
What was that, Summer?
Oh, I was just asking if there were any other questions on that before I move forward.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna do. I was just gonna go make sure. Robert, do you have any additional questions?
No, I'm asking.
Okay, Michelle?
Nope.
James?
No.
Okay, Tyler?
Great. So adjustment number 2 has to do with the police radio tower conversation that's been happening for several years. And I'm hoping that Chief is also on the call in case we have additional questions. But my understanding is that this project has been out there as a potential for several years and included in the budget for several years. It's now uncertain as to whether that project is even going to continue, just based on what's happening in that world. So my recommendation is to pull that out of police capital outlay where it's currently sitting in your approved budget and just move that down to contingency so that the police expenditure budget more accurately reflects what we think is going to happen during the year.
Chief, is there any
Questions
concerns?
on that?
Well, I'm really not sure how that works. It came out of contingency, back in 2018, we thought it was gonna happen, and now we're here in 2021. I think we could just pull it out if we need to, or do a special budget, so I would suggest going with Summer's recommendation. Apparently, there's an invoice of over 3,000 for work they did in October 2018, survey, engineering, or something on the tower, and that's the only invoice I know that's supposed to be coming, but it still hasn't.
That invoice been sitting around for 3 years almost.
Yeah, and so when I started asking questions about it, I didn't even know. I didn't know we had this invoice coming. And I think, I can't remember when I talked to the guy now. I got emails, but it's probably coming up on a year again. I still haven't seen it, so whatever. Yeah. So, but I know there, in the meantime, there's been talks about consolidating dispatch. That's my understanding. They're not dead, but there hasn't been a lot of movement on that end either. So,
Okay.
and ultimately, it'd be great. And Joe we were just talking about it. If we consolidate dispatch or not, if there's some way we could get a new radio system altogether, but that's going to cost $3 bucks.
So something in the future to think about. On that topic, Tyler, any questions? Michelle?
No.
Robert? James?
No question, thank you.
Okay, we'll continue on, sir.
Okay, so the third and final adjustment that we're proposing has to do with personnel services, again, in police. So as we as managers were having this conversation about the general fund budget and are we doing the best we can with our expenditures, the police chief offered that that we could basically freeze his salary and not give him a COLA for this fiscal year. And so we worked that into the approved budget. And that is something that I forgot to bring to the budget committee's attention. So it was not specifically discussed with the budget committee. It's about $2,400. And it's one of those things that if I had brought it to the committee's attention, there may have been discussion about that. And I don't know that the committee would have wanted to go that direction. I don't know that they wouldn't either way. But since it wasn't brought to their attention, I wanted to bring it to City Council's attention and get your input on whether you would like that COLA put back in the budget or leave it out.
So it was pulled out.
It's $2,400. I'm sorry?
So, but you pulled it back out though, because of the request from the chief that he would rather just forego it.
Correct. He proposed that as an option if we needed to cut that back.
Chief, how do you feel about that still?
Oh, I'm fine with it. I was just looking for cuts in my budget when this said the general fund was 150,000. And yes, everybody likes money, but it's it's not that big of a hit. I'm in a position where I can afford something like that, where others can't. So if it helps the budget and gets us through, that's fine.
How does council feel? Questions, Tyler?
It's his decision.
Michelle?
It's very generous of them.
Very beginners. Robert?
I don't like it. I think he should get his COLA. And I think that maybe there should be some questions as to why that was offered, as well as other deductions that were made in that department on the budget.
James?
While that's a noble gesture, I'm not in favor of it.
I kind of agree in terms of what Robert and James is saying. I'd rather see you keep that and us find other areas that can be cut or saved.
Okay. Thank you.
So Summer, what do you need on us from that then at that point if you were to put it back in?
What I will need is a motion on these adjustments. The motion would be to adopt the budget with these adjustments made to them. So it'd be adopting resolution 7/12/21 with the adjustments as proposed. The total budget amount will not change. It'll still be the 10 million number in section 1. But there will be changes between amounts appropriated, meaning authorized to spend, versus unappropriated, which means they're being held or not authorized to spend. So that's what I would need from City Council, is an adoption of the resolution with these adjustments
As read.
as read, as presented.
I make the motion, we adopt as presented.
I second it.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
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 Is that 2 nays?
What?
No.
Were you a nay or a in favor?
I'm in favor, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, resolution will carry. Summer, thank you very much.
You are very welcome. Would you like me to stay on the meeting for any of your other discussions?
Probably the discussion regarding potential city manager might be good, for at least you to continue to get the insight of what we're discussing.
Happy to do that.
Okay, so let's move on to it.
Close the public hearing.
Was it even open? Yeah, no, we already closed. We had moved on to the discussion regarding the resolution.
I have another amendment then to this resolution. When you guys get to the consent agenda on 7/15/2021,
Okay,
you will want to add, we will amend it to add back in the COLA for the police chief position.
I got a note on that. Hopefully
Thank
I
you.
won't blow by it. Okay, so back to the continued discussion regarding potential city managers. So last time we met as a council, my ask was for everyone to go back, at least from the council side, and see what the public was thinking, at least those that you can engage with and chat with. I'll start off with what I'm hearing, at least from the limited discussions I've been able to have, was individuals that would like to see us stay within the city budget, not to see us have a deficit, and not understanding really why we need a city manager. It's personally what I've been hearing. Now, it's not a wide circle, but that's who I ran at least across and started asking. I don't want to pollute any other suggestions right now, but I'd like to get other input. And let's go opposite way this time, and we'll start with James on the phone. James, what is your takeaway? What has been your thoughts and discussions?
Well, in talking to several of my neighbors and other city personnel, not city personnel, but citizens, more in favor of a manager only for the accountability purposes, versus those that say they don't care one way or another. So the majority of people, 51% or greater that I have talked to, believe that we could benefit with a city manager and potentially smooth things out. So that's my take.
Okay. Robert?
The few people that I talked to, they like the idea of the city manager, they just don't know how we can afford it. They're not in favor of going any more negative on the budget.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we did not get a chance to talk to anybody.
Tyler?
Yeah, the people I talked to, who I'm sure how you get a budget and they get them together, doesn't make any sense. So the people I talk to don't understand how we can afford it, don't understand what their role would really be at this point in time. So I've shared my stance on it.
Now, Vicky did send out notification that, yeah, there is discussions on expansion. I don't know when that growth will necessarily happen, even if it moves quick, it's still probably a ways out. I guess I will throw my 2 cents out there first for council, and then we can discuss it as well. But I guess where I see we do need someone to help out with finance at this point in time. I don't know if we need a full-time finance person in there doing AP and ledger. But my suggestion would probably be to see if we can't find someone to come in part-time to help out with that role. I guess that would be my suggestion. If in a year we feel that that expansion has come in and maybe we are in a better position financially in a year, then we revisit and see if we can bring someone at that point in time. If we're talking about a year out, I don't see anyone pouring foundations for at least another year, which means we would be really in a hard pressed place if that development doesn't happen, gets delayed, and we find ourselves in a very tough position. My other thoughts on this as well is sharing that we are cutting budgets in other areas. And I don't like to hear that we're also having to sacrifice in other areas, or even where we have city personnel or department heads that are willing to sacrifice income for us to try to pull in something like this. I guess as even as the mayor, I don't mind continuing to deal with some of the, I don't want to call it thrash, but some of the overhead that comes with making sure that we're all well informed with every decision that has to go around, as inconvenience as that might be. I'm assuming we can still handle that for the next year, year and a half as we go through the process. But that's my 2 cents. I'd like to get the 2 cents from the rest of the council. And I'm gonna mix it up this time. We'll start with Michelle.
I agree with the fact that we are in a deficit budget, and then maybe we should find some ways around that. But looking at trying to hire personnel for the finance position, I guess I would want to know, do we have enough work for a full-time position? If not, then half-time, or do we meet in the middle and do 3/4 time? You know, I don't know what we're seeing and what we're thinking on that. If that would be helpful, you know, to the other administrative staff. To make sure, because maybe half-time isn't quite enough, but maybe full-time is too much. Yeah.
I would ask you to look to Vicky and Julie on that one.
Well, if you're gonna go to finance, you need a full-time person. You're paying a consultant for a certain amount of hours to do finance.
Mhm.
I'm taking on, AP payroll, and she's got some of the utilities, so
Do you see it as a full-time position?
there's full-time position. There's full-time work there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I add some? So also and correct me if I'm wrong, the finance person is also the human resource person here, or at least shares a lot of those duties?
No, that was a mixed. It was a mix. I was doing the HR and she was doing insurance on.
Yeah, there is
There's some mixed
also other
duties.
duties other than the paying the bills and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
So would it be better to have somebody that's maybe not a director, but somebody that,
I'm assuming we'd revert back to what we probably had before. I don't know, you had a city treasurer, you had a different name for it, but it wasn't a director level.
This is support special or a senior accounting specialist.
Right. But my assumption is we revert back to that. I don't think we need another department head. I don't see that. Robert, what's your thoughts?
Well, unless the city staff has a way to cut $50,000 out of their budgets to come up with extra money, and I'm not asking that they do that by any stretch of the imagination. I don't see where we can afford city manager right now. I do see the need and the benefit of having one. In my employment, it's imperative to have one person to go to, not 4 or 5. So to see that benefit, I just don't see how we can afford it. As far as the replacement for finance, I think that's something that we should have done a couple months ago. I was disappointed when that was decided not to do that right then and there. We need to do that now with a full-time person, not a department head. I think we need to look at what the state requirements are and go from there. And if we can find a way in the next year or two to, add an extra person or a city manager, great, but not now.
Tyler?
Yeah, I agree with Robert. I think if you go back to the January minutes, I said we need to fill this seat as fast as possible. And we didn't do that, and we're paying for it. We're getting kicked in the shin, paying what we're paying for a consultant. So
Worth every penny, but there are
I'm
other
saying
ways.
she's not worth it. I'm just saying, we take money and we open the window and we just throw it out like we got money to spend. We buy a 6-pack of chicken nuggets, eat 3 and throw 3 out the window. It makes no sense.
All right, let's not disagree with you on that one. I don't think
You
we have
disagree
time.
with everything I say,
Yeah,
so
no,
let me
I
finish
don't.
talking first, and then you can tell me how you disagree with me. So I do agree that we need to bring in a finance person. They need to report to Judy, sorry, I apologize. To Vicky. But I don't think it needs to be a director level person. It doesn't need to be, maybe not even full-time, but that's what I agree with. But tell me how I'm wrong.
I'm not saying that you're wrong. What I'm telling you is we couldn't have brought a finance person on board in time to even do the budget this year. Judy left, had a bad time. So we would have still been throwing the proverbial money out the window, as you said.
Yeah, because we got it to burn, so let's burn it.
Again, it's just a choice of words. I disagree with you on that.
Good for you.
James?
Yes. We have a $10 million budget and we can't seem to find a little extra money to do it right the first time. That's my take. We have the opportunity to bring on somebody. I disagree with a part-time finance person because we're talking about $10 million that we want somebody to be accountable for. I don't think we can go to the top of the overpass and get the lady holding a sign begging for money to come in and do something like that. We need to pay a person to make sure that we're staying out of jail and to make sure we're on the right track. So if we can incorporate a little extra money to make sure that we have the right person and that we have a manager overseeing it, I feel that there's no better time than the present. And lastly, I don't think we'll have an opportunity to change this in the future. And to me, it sounded like city staff all was in favor of a manager, and that would help make our city run smoothly. A city manager could assist in finding ways to cut some expenditures, save some money, and probably pay for her or his position more than one time over. So that's my take.
City staff?
Y'all know how I feel about it. So, I mean, I think it's the way to go. I'm with James on this. This is your opportunity to get somebody in here that's gonna assist and move the city forward, where city council and staff are working together as one. This is your opportunity. You have a position open.
Mike?
I'm gonna go back to what I said earlier. It would be nice to have a liaison between us and all of you, so we don't have to track you down single-handedly to get a question on something that's pressing.
Chief?
Well, I can't remember what I said, but I think it's good to have a go-to person, like today when I texted on the natural gas thing, but I just worried about, are we gonna have to cut stuff in the department?
I believe that when Summer was presenting the budget, and she correct me if I'm wrong, there was some items in there that were a one-time expenditure and that may or may not happen in this next budget cycle. And we didn't budget for the property to break ground, so to speak. And I was surprised that the day after the meeting that we get this application that came in and they're ready to go. And you're right. It might not develop for another year, but it's there and it's gonna happen. It's not a matter of, is it gonna happen? It's a matter of when. And I think it's gonna happen sooner than later.
What they're doing right now is they're trying to pencil it out. Will it work, will it not work? And probably, I'm looking at, we'll have that answer within 4 to 6 months.
So I guess the question I would have for staff then, if this is something you're wanting, what do you have that you can offset the costs? We're talking almost $50,000 increased cost over just a finance person. Where are we gonna get that 50,000?
Well, I'm anticipating that we but when we were budgeting, we budgeted everything very, what am I looking for? You know, maybe the revenue low, whereas it may be higher than what we're going to be bringing in. The budgeting, we're all guesstimating what is going to be coming in, what we're going to be expending out. So as Summer mentioned, those one-time ticket items may not occur. So
I understand that, but if they do occur, then we still are having to pay for those, plus that extra almost $50,000 for this manager's position.
well, I guess we're hoping that this person will also find revenue when he comes in, and also it's cutting some expenditures.
Do you guys mind if I chime in
Please.
Please do.
with some thoughts? Okay. So again, this is just coming from an outside person looking in who has seen seen a lot in the last several years that I've been doing this. There is a reason why I worked that proposal into the budget. I know that it looks like you can't afford it, but you can. Here's what's happening. Over the past many years, I'm looking at like 7, 8 years, the city has been underspending what it's been bringing in. So you've been bringing in these resources and providing services, but not to the full extent of the revenue that you're bringing in. So all these years you've been building this big old piggy bank in the general fund. And that's okay to some extent, but there are those that would argue, and to be honest, I'm one, that's more possibly on my personal philosophy, but if I belong to a city and I'm a taxpayer, I want them to spend some of that money on the services that I'm asking for and not just hoard it in a piggy bank. I'm not saying that's what's been happening, so please don't take that the wrong way. But at some point, the city of Hubbard has reached this point where you have, at the end of this year, you're going to have somewhere in the vicinity of $1.4 million just sitting there, like in a piggy bank. And so my suggestion was based on the fact that you can eat away into some of that huge piggy bank. It's not huge, but into that piggy bank in order to try this out for a couple of years, try a city manager out for a couple of years, and see how it fits. If it fits, great. If it doesn't, you can move back to something else. But in that 2-year time frame, you likely will run some kind of deficit and eat into that piggy bank. Part of the city manager's job is to be looking at that and working with the finance team to look at long-term how you balance how much cash you're keeping in the general fund for reserves and rainy day versus spending that money on services. At the same time, what I'm seeing, and I'm going to say this, and it may upset council members, but it's the truth and it's where I'm coming from as a professional. I think that your staff have been somewhat enabling the city council from not making a decision like this, because there are several functions that need to happen within a city. And right now, without an administrator, I would expect, based on the job duties and job descriptions of your managers, that city council would be doing a lot of those functions. And what I'm seeing is that staff is saying, well, these things aren't happening and they need to happen, so I guess I just better get it done. And that's not just Vicki, that's other department heads as well, and other staff. So they are really taking on substantially more than their job duties. And that, to some extent, presents a risk for the city, especially if they're not being compensated. I don't know if they are or not. So my recommendation is still that council consider making this investment in the city's future. And at the same time, if you decide not to, again, that's your decision. And that's okay. But I would advise that if you decide to go that direction, that you take some time to revisit your manager's job descriptions and job functions, and consider some of those functions that maybe should be done by council instead of by your managers. That's it.
So I can piggyback off some of those comments. This is Ashley Driscoll, City Attorney Office. Mayor, do you mind if I speak?
Go ahead.
Okay. So my recommendation is a little bit similar to Summer's. Obviously, I don't have the in-depth knowledge of your budget, but my recommendation from a legal perspective is, if you are going to go down this route, to do it as a two-step process. So the first step, if you were to hire a city manager, to do it by a temporary ordinance, do a reshuffle where you would have your department heads report to that city manager. However, under your charter, you still need to reserve some of that authority to the city council. And then if that is working out, potentially go back to the voters and ask for a charter amendment to have more of a traditional city manager form of government. So, somewhat of a test phase to see if this is a structure that works best for the city council or the city of Hubbard. And if that temporary, model where some of the authority is still retained by the city council, but you do have a city manager where the other appointed officials report to that person, if that works for the city, then you can continue doing that. Anecdotally, I think that if you had a city manager, just, from my work with the city, I do think that the city manager could assist with a lot of things that I and some of the other attorneys in my office assist with. And that's just comparing, some of the work that we do for the city of Hubbard with some of the other cities that we work with.
Thank you, Ashley. Council, any questions for Ashley or Summer on those statements? No. James?
No questions, thank you.
So I hear from city staff, you guys would still prefer to see someone come in as a city manager. So I'm here. Summer is very passionate, believing that we should try this.
Again, I'm on the outside, so.
Sure, but you made a good passionate plea. Ashley?
It's because I believe in it for the benefit of the city, but it really truly is up to city council.
Mayor, were you asking for me to speak? I'm sorry, I missed that if you were.
For your input, Ashley.
Yeah, again, I'm not as involved in this process. I had to look up my notes. I haven't been involved since, I think, February in this decision-making process, and I haven't looked at the impact of the budget. When we started off this conversation, I did think it was a good idea, again, just to streamline some of the work. I think Summer made some great points. And I think that there is a real opportunity for some reductions in other areas if the city manager, can take back some of those functions. I'm not sure that that's guaranteed, but I think there's definitely an opportunity for that. From a legal perspective, I do think, having one person in charge, one person making the decision helps a lot. I do have some concerns about, some of the other legal concerns when the city council is making more city function decisions, that we're making sure that we're following public meetings laws. And, as I've said before, you guys are really hardworking elected volunteer officials, and you take on a lot. And this would help, relieve the burden on you folks. So, I guess I don't have a super strong opinion either way. I do think it's a great idea, and I'm glad that you guys are exploring it, and I'll support your decision either way.
So Ashley, how would a motion go forward on this? What would the recommended wording be in a motion?
I'm not sure if we are there yet. So I would do it via ordinance, where you create the position, and then we'd have to discuss a little bit what the structure would look like. So I think I would want a little bit more notice in terms of taking an official action, but certainly if you want us to explore what the next steps would be in this, and you guys wanted to do a motion to direct staff to do that, I think that would be an appropriate place to start tonight.
I would make the motion that we direct staff to work with the Ashley to proceed in looking at what it takes for us to hire a city manager and / finance person.
Okay. We have a first, we have a motion, we have a second by Robert. All those in favor of said motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, the motion will carry. So Ashley, can you please work with, I guess in this case, Summer and Vicky, to define what we would need in terms of this particular position and how we need to structure a temporary ordinance to allow it?
Sure, I can do that.
Thank you.
Unless, do you need me to stay on?
Nope, I think we're good now on that.
Okay, thanks everybody. Good to hear you.
Thank
And
you.
see you, James.
I'm
Okay,
gonna take off too, unless you'd like me to stay.
I don't think so. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, you guys take care. Thank you.
You too.
Okay, public comment. Now on this one, number 5, Vicky, public comment on these resolutions amending water rates and sewer rates. I thought we weren't going to amend them this year.
No, that was never mentioned.
So were we gonna, I thought we were going
I
to.
was going based on the schedule that's laid out in the master plan, which is the sheets that were attached to the resolutions. It's totally up to you, the council, what you want to do. I was going based on what we've been doing every year. So if you don't want to do them, that's fine.
I just remember the discussion on this one being that if we couldn't find a reason to increase them, why would we? I don't think Public Works came back with anything we were shooting for, unless it was the service or the economic development charges.
Okay, so I remember talking about the transportation resolution, not the water sewer ones.
Yeah, and we made an adjustment to one of the other fees in the water bill to bring it to a net zero gain.
That was last year.
That was
Yeah.
last year.
Right. That was last year.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we're looking for a public hearing on this one?
Public comment. It's open for public comment on both of those. So if the public has anything, if they want to give their input, this is the opportunity for them to do that.
Okay, well, with that, I will open it up. Do we have anyone online who would like to make a comment on this? Okay, if I don't hear anything on public comment, that's what this section was for, then for public comment. Okay, let's move on to 6, mayor or council presentations. Councilors, do we have anyone that has anything to go ahead?
So I just want to get, so you are not going to adopt these resolutions because they are not in the consent
They're
agenda.
not in the consent agenda?
No.
Okay. Council, anyone want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we approve resolution number 713-2021, resolution amending water rates for the city of Hubbard and repealing resolution number 698-2020. One at a time.
You can do both of them or one at a time, however you want to do it.
And then also approve resolution number 714-2021, a resolution amending sewer rates for the city of Hubbard and repealing resolution number 699-2020.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor of resolution number 7132021 and resolution number 7142021, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, resolution's carried. Okay, back to agenda number 6 then. Mayor and or council presentations. Well, do you have anything? Thank you. Michelle.
Just that the Hubbard Hop Fest group is working on a community parade for July 17th. More information will be forthcoming. We have a meeting tomorrow about the time, and I think it's going to be the same route as previous years.
Tyler? James?
I have a little something, Mayor. The Woodburn Kiwanis has been in contact with the district that covers the Cub Scouts here in the North Marion area. Due to COVID, the North Marion Cub Scout Pack was put in hiatus. And now that we're coming out of it, there's the Woodburn Kiwanis is willing to sponsor and be the charter again for the pack. So expect to see some information coming out. I have a press release for the newsletter, encouraging those that are interested in scouting to join up, and we can get the pack going back here at North Marion School. So that's a win-win for the kids. And of course, with all the new protocols that the Scouts have in place, it's one of the safest place kids can be nowadays. So that's it. Thanks.
The only thing I would add is I've been reading in the news, the 21st should be something of a milestone where most of the state might be lifting COVID restrictions, et cetera. So I guess my ask is to the council and as well as maybe city staff is, if that is the case, I would love to see it. We can open this back up again, City Hall in July. We can be back up in the dais and we can have an audience back in here. That would be my ask. Any concerns from council on that?
Check with the governor's office first to make sure that we're not violating.
I said June 21st.
The Empress's ordinances or orders or whatever she calls them.
All right, so with that, let's move on to the police department's presentation.
Okay, so something that's not on there, I want to point out, it's mostly kudos to Sergeant Anderson on a couple of things. We had somebody who's been in the system moved into town. We immediately started having problems. And like when we were showing up on calls and firearms involved, right? I mean, not shot, but there's firearms there. Sergeant Anderson got necessary resources. We were able to get the guns from folks, but also get those folks moving along. And they're no longer in our town. So we did a good job. Didn't find a problem. We weren't here that long. And you know, every day it seemed like it was increasing on bad news. The second thing is he was working on, it's been going on for a while. It's been some kids who are not in the best situation. Parents probably need some parenting and control their lives. He was able to assist with DHS, and we've got those kids in a better place right now. We were on that call today, Sergeant Anderson and I, some residents stopped by and personally thanked Sergeant Anderson from me for doing that. So somebody was observing. So he did some great work on a couple of cases there that, he got all the officers involved in the one house, the first one I talked about, but he was really the lead on both of them. We assisted with the parade this weekend. It went well. I was not there, but we actually elected to go into Aurora and Dawn. And so, because we weren't getting any help from the Marion County Sheriff's Office, they just made it that they're not going to help on parades. It's a senior parade. We wanted all our seniors to be able to enjoy it. Right. And some live in Donald, some live in Aurora. So, and then lastly, we've got the National Night Out. I believe it's Tuesday, August 3rd.
I think so.
Yeah. So Molly got us registered. Hopefully, I don't think we've had anybody call in. Though I think Rocky's going to talk about some stuff tonight. But encourage citizens, and we will be out in force on that night. Sounds like everything's going to open up here. So, does anybody have any questions? And Mark Wise, he's in week 10 now.
And how many weeks out of it? 14?
16. And he has to go an extra week because the academy for their union contract have always July 4th week off. So he has to go one more week.
Well, he gets to go back.
Yeah. So, but it's getting there.
James, no one has questions for Chief. Do you have any?
I have no questions. Thank you for all you're doing, Chief.
Okay, let's move on. Fire District, Chief Budge's here today.
Council, the Hubbard Fire District is in the process of hiring a new replacement career firefighter for the resignation of one of our 4 career members. The selection will be made from our joint eligibility list. That's 5 fire districts in the region come together, form a commission that builds an eligibility list for firefighters. We'll be making a selection from that, and that process is underway now. So that's all I got.
Any questions for Chief Budge?
Are we allowed to ask who's leaving?
Yeah, it's Robert granddaughter. He is resigning to take position at Mount Angel Fire.
Oh.
Yeah.
James, any questions?
No questions. Thanks, Chief.
Robert? No. All right, Chief. Let's move on. Administrative Department.
Okay, you have my report. I believe that I have the Duns and Sam's account for the city all squared away. I'm waiting for a response from Melinda to make sure that she's able to log in and have access to hers. I just don't think she's had the opportunity to do that, but I believe all the city Duns and Sam's accounts are taken care of. On the IT services or the server update, I had another company come in and take a look at our server, and I provided to you what this person's recommendation was, and the cost estimate was $4,070.
As opposed to 10.
Exactly. So I was hoping that instead of doing the replacement, that I would, council would allow me to move forward and update according to what his recommendation would be.
Yeah, and this would bring our servers up to at least some sort of a warranty and ensure that we have continuous operations.
Yes, until, what do we say, 2023, and we can start planning for possible server cloud hardware, software requirements.
In the 2024 timeframe or 2023?
2024, because he said this goes until if we buy in July, that gives us 2 years for July 2023. So.
And on that, that included his labor for installation and configuration.
That is correct.
So there's no hidden costs.
Right.
That's a huge drop from the other one.
Much bigger drop.
Also, I'm still in the process of possibly moving to this company for IT services. We do have a meeting with our current IT services. They supposedly took information off of our server to work out a plan for us. So we're gonna listen to what they have to offer as well.
Okay, so maybe this is something we'll pick up next month, I'm assuming, wait for, I guess, Black Point to come back with their recommendation? Or
That is for monthly services.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you would recommend that we go ahead and move forward with at least upgrading the server for the 4,000?
yes.
You need consensus or a motion?
I'd like a motion.
I'll make a motion that we go ahead and allow the administrative department to bring our server into updated for the $4,070. To the, what's the company's name?
Northwest,
Tech Support.
yes.
I'll second that.
Okay, good. First, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those
Aye.
opposed? Okay, all those opposed say nay.
Thank you. And then if, let's see, just a reminder, you guys had asked me to set up a meeting, and I know it's a little ways out there for the goal setting. And so if you could tentatively put it on your calendars for November 2nd at 6:30.
What date was that again?
November 2nd at 6:30. And then if you had any other questions.
Any other questions for the administrative department? Vicki? Barb?
Let's do. Your update on the building, utility building, you mentioned that you found some landlord accounts that hadn't been properly transferred. You know how many?
I don't, because I keep finding them.
What's the estimate?
Oh, gosh. So far, I think there's been about 5 or 6
Okay.
that I've come across, but I kind of come across them. Like I came across one yesterday, I think I said, I was telling Vicki, I'm like, oh,
And
she did this wrong again.
what dollar amounts are we talking about here? You said that some were expecting a large bill.
One is $1,200
Oh,
because it was never connected. It should have been connected. They wanted their water left on. It was never connected. And in fact, it was how I found it was one of the officers came and said, who lives at this house? And I said, doesn't look like anyone's lived there since 2019. And they said, well, someone's living there. So I went and had the meter read, went and checked on it. And they had used quite a bit. So I called the property manager and I said, just so you know, this wasn't hooked up and there's been a lot of water usage. And so you're going to have a big bill. And
So it goes back to the landlord.
It goes back to the landlord, and when the tenant moved out, it was never connected back to the landlord. And so I think that was March 2019. There had been people in there and it's never been hooked up. So there was all that water usage.
Is there any way Public Works, can you guys help out, identify if do you meter read every meter out there?
Every meter, every 2 months.
So is this one just missed or it just was getting inputted in the system or?
Well, I'm not exactly sure how you missed not connecting it back to the landlord, to be really honest. Because once someone moves out, a tenant moves out and they have a landlord, it automatically, now you may leave they may say leave the water off, but you've still got connections going on there. And like with these guys, like right now, if I see someone, I'll go, hey, can you go out and check this meter, make sure it's still off? You know, I honestly don't know how this goes.
is there anything that we could put in place to make sure that this doesn't happen in the future?
I think that we've talked about this, and it's a report where you have accounts that are on suspend status but there's meter usage and no billing. So unbilled water, I think, is what we were talking about. So we're hoping we're going to be gathering, and checking these. Yeah. So, well, and I had quite a few of them, remember, on the list, and it was showing no usage. And so I went back and looked, because like I said, I knew all this, I've never had any training on these. So I'm starting to figure it out. And I'm like, okay, why has there been no water usage if people have lived there for like a few months? So I had Mike go out and check and found that some of the meters weren't working.
what it was taking a zero reading. Not Julie, but
Previous.
right. We're taking zero readings, and instead of notifying us that there was zero reading, she was just writing it off as nobody lived there. And what we were looking at instead was broken meters.
Right.
I ended up having to change out 30 broken meters. 30.
I'm sorry you had to do that, but thank you, staff, for
So we're
finding the
hoping,
problem and taking care of it.
yeah, and we're hoping now that, like I'm finding more and more each time, because as you do it, you learn, it's amazing what you start figuring out. So we'll know more this next time, what we got and if there's others and that type of thing. So it's still a matter of cleaning everything up. But we went from a few months ago when there was between active customers and inactive customers, those are the ones that you final bill when you're waiting on. It was, I remember looking at it, it was about $30,000 and we're down below 4,000 right now. So I've been able to collect and stuff. So it's just a matter of keeping up on it.
Good.
And there was different tricks used to offset these, to put them in some place where you wouldn't be concerned about it, put it that way. And that's what she's having to do, is take them out of these little hidey holes.
And going, what's going on with this? And why is this like this? So, huh?
Feeling the other.
Yeah.
That's the only question I have.
The administrative department, I only just want to thank you. If you look at the first two bullet points, whether it's payroll or the update utility, you're still dealing with cleaning things up.
Mhm. They just keep popping up.
Yeah.
Michelle, any questions?
No questions.
James?
I have no questions except for getting this DUNS figured out, because I've been trying to work on that American fund and I just need the correct DUNS.
The number?
Yeah,
Okay, I can provide that to you tomorrow if I can email it to you.
that's fine. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, James. Tyler? Okay, and public works?
So you've got my reports in front of you, and at this point, I don't have anything new to add.
Thank you for getting the fountain on, right here in the kids' lab. You kind of already gave us an update on the G Street sidewalk. Any other remaining tree concerns from the ice storm? Are we done with that?
No, we still got some, there's maybe 30 out there. We were able to get most of the limbs that were 30 feet and below, and we're just got the third bid collected, and we're gonna go out for that to finish up that project, and it's everything 30 foot and above. There's about 30 trees out there. We're looking at about $10,000.
I also noticed around town that there's still a lot of piles of debris on homeowners' property. Is there something we can do, a notification we can send out? Because I'm just worried summer's coming and we have fire hazards if someone decides to throw a cigarette.
Right, no, that's something we can do. We can send letters out saying you need to deal with them, or for this particular thing, we can send the crew out for a day, throw in the back of the dump truck, haul it off to the landfill. So, that's your prerogative, how would you like to deal with that?
My biggest concern, I don't know, there's not a whole lot of piles out there.
I figured we could do it in 4 or 5 hours.
We can get them cleaned up. I'd rather see it cleaned up than having a fire. That would be my prerogative, but again, the council, what is your thoughts?
I don't like the idea of us going on the private property and taking off, even though it's, wood debris, they'd probably be happy to get rid of it, but that's their responsibility.
Right, what I would suggest is no, it wouldn't go on private property, be those piles that are on the parking strips in front of the house.
Things that are on public right of way.
Right, it's like the lady next door to you got some. A couple other piles I'm not, but there's 2 or 3 more that are on the right of way that we just pick up. Yeah.
It's just like a little one here and a little one there, and it's just like right on the, like, I don't expect the city to pick it up or what, but yeah. Let's try to see if they can get them cleaned up first.
Okay, we'll send out one.
I think we got another month before. I'm just fearful it's really dry out there, and I know we're heading into the fire season.
Yep.
There's already one down in southern Oregon.
Any questions for Public Works from council? Robert?
No.
John? Yes. Howard?
No, but I would mention on the debris cleanup, people with noxious weeds, et cetera, that's ordinance violations.
Yep.
The majority of council has decided that ordinance violations need to be reported before we can act on them.
Complaint risk.
So we cannot proactively go out and enforce the wood piles or the 8-foot tall grass.
Unless there's a complaint.
Right. So we're kind of, I guess, talking to ourselves when we're saying.
Not in this case. We're asking them to go out.
I'm shocked that you disagree with them.
We're asking Public Works to go out proactively try to deal with this file.
Right, pick up trees that came from private property that the people refuse to pick up, make the city pay for it.
I think what we're asking them to do is go ask them to pick it up.
First round, we're gonna send out letters and see how many people will actually respond to those letters at this point. Is what we're gonna do. Send them letters, clean up your mess.
Or else, what?
Or else we do it and charge for it.
Okay, good luck.
James, any questions for Public Works?
Has ODOT expressed any information on the A Street and 99E intersection to Public Works?
The only discussion I've had with ODOT on the A Street and 99 is due to the ADA ramp project that'll be coming through town next summer. I think there are 2 corners that they're gonna put ADA ramps on there. But other than that, no.
Are they putting in crosswalks that you know of?
No.
Okay. Okay, nope, that's all I have. Thank you, guys.
All right, let's move on to the consent agenda then. I will read these lists off and not screw up on B. A, approval of the minutes, January 26, 2021 City Council and April 13, 2021 City Council. B, resolution number 7102021, resolution declaring the City of Hubbard's election to receive state revenues pursuant to ORS 221.770. That is not the one we need to call a change on. Yep, okay. Resolution number 7112021, a resolution certifying that the City of Hubbard provides 4 or more municipal services to be eligible to receive shared revenues. Resolution number 7152021, a resolution amending compensation ranges for classified employees and repealing resolution number 6942020. And with the amendment to add back in the COLA for the chief.
And the amendment to the utility worker, part-time and temporary summer helper minimum wage.
As read. All right, moving on. Resolution number 7172021, a resolution extending the City of Hubbard's workers' compensation coverage to volunteers of the City of Hubbard and repealing resolution number 7012020. Approval of the May 2021 check register report. G, authorize an additional 12-month probation period and an exception to the minimum qualifications for utility worker to choose job description to allow Juan Hernandez to achieve the water treatment number 1 certification and water distribution 1 certification that was previously granted on June 11th, 2019, June 9th, 2020, December 8th, 2020. Approval to move Tim Steele, utility worker 1, from D to step E of the Hubbard's salary schedule effective July 1, 2021. Approval of Cindy Courtney Allen, I hope I got that right, request to reserve Revenues Park covered area and surrounding picnic tables August 21st, 2021 from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Approval of agreement between City of Hubbard and CIS, who has engaged Millennium Incorporated to perform EASB 75 OPEB valuation services. Approval for contract for services between Grove, Mueller, and Swank PC and City of Hubbard. Accept the engagement letter from Grove, Mueller, and Swank PC for audit services year ending June 30th, 2021, and authorize mayor and or council president to sign.
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as read.
Second.
I said,
Okay, we had a second from Robert. Quick second there by James Wood, just in case. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Consent agenda carries. Moving on, discussion regarding proposed citywide events and activities. Rocky.
So, were you guys talking about me?
we approved, Cynthia, we approved your request to use the park.
Okay, thank you.
You
Yes.
bet.
Was the class reunion of 1917, if I'm not mistaken, or no, 1970.
1970. 1970.
So I actually read the application in the packet. I'm like, oh, look at this, how exciting.
No, it says my family got to Hubbard in 1917.
Well, there you go.
It's Edward and Beverly Kootenai.
Well, have a good event.
Anyway, okay.
Okay, we'll move on. Discussion regarding proposed citywide events and activities. Rocky. We still have Rocky, or did we lose Rocky?
He's still there.
Hear me?
We can hear you now.
Can you hear? All right, it's cool. So I went by and talked to Mike. I've been having real bad medical issues with my rotator. I've been trying to get an MRI, and so I missed the meeting with Rash because I had an unscheduled doctor's appointment that came up last minute. I went by city a couple days ago, talked to Mike, and we decided to move the kickball game to July sometime. And I've been also making the meetings with Michelle with the Hubbard Hop Festival, which I plan on being in the meeting tomorrow night as well online. But I had something new happen that kind of got thrown in my lap is I have an opportunity with the blessing of the NFL to sponsor our youth football program to bring it back to North Marion. I'll know at the end of the week. I'll be coaching that team, and so we got a good potential. We'll know at the end of the week that the NFL is going to bring the football program back to North Marion, which will open up a lot of doors because it'll be an NFL flag, no contact, two-hand touch kind of stuff. So that's what I'm working on now.
Great, Rocky. Are you going to run that by, I guess, North Marion Youth Athletic Board or the school?
No, I'm going to do that independent. I'm teaming up with a guy that the president of the flag football team that's getting the NFL involved in Salem. I'm actually teaming up with him, and we're gonna do a football program through him, so we don't have any schools holding us back. We're gonna do it independently, leave it up to the parents and the kids to do it outside the school as a after-school program. The games will be played in Salem behind the indoor soccer stadium on Portland Road on Saturdays. So it'll be played outside in Salem on a turf field.
Well, good luck on organizing that, Rocky. That's a lot of work.
I'm already like halfway done with it, but we'll have it finalized at the end of the week, and we'll have a meeting once we get more information to broadcast a little bit more. I just got it this week.
Okay. Anything else regarding the city?
Yeah, we're looking at maybe. Hey, Mike, what was that date that we thought about in July? So we're not so close to the Hop Festival. Was it like July 28th on a Sunday, having that kickball game?
Yeah, it was something like that. It was the fourth Sunday in July for that.
And what I also wanted to put a kind of bug in you guys' ear as a community leader, as a Hubbard Community Planning Events Committee president. I also ran by Mike that I think it'd be a good idea starting in September. We'll make it annual event for the city workers and the mayor and the chief and the fire department people. Like he said, like there's 20 people. Maybe our committee could put together like a barbecue for the family members and the city workers to have like an annual softball game or kickball game as well for that day to honor our city workers. In September sometime.
Sounds like an interesting proposal. We'll let it go through Mike on that one, Rocky.
All right.
All right. Anyone have any questions for Rocky? James?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Let's move on to discuss the use of the funds from the Community Prosperity Initiative Program.
Coming up this next year, this next fiscal year, we'll be eligible to receive our final 15,000. So you guys will have some money in there that we have to use according to the agreement. And we haven't discussed what we would like to use these funds for.
Now, those need to go to community improvement, I'm assuming, supplemental budgets. I mean, what exactly can we use those funds for?
So it seemed like it was a wide range, some kind of you're right, it's community oriented, but there's a wide range of things that you could use it for. You know, at one time we talked about, or it was presented, urban growth boundary, updated the comprehensive plan, or maybe some kind of project, sidewalk stuff, you know. It's really, you know, you guys dream it and we'll run it across their desk to make sure it falls within their guidelines.
I could Robert, I want to see some sidewalks put in, especially.
Would be nice.
Yeah.
One thought that we have in our department is that would go a long ways to finish up the extra costs on that G Street sidewalk. If the railroad is not willing to work with us, it's going to be an extra $50,000.
Can we use it for that?
I'm sorry?
Can we use the money for
I believe that we can. We can verify that with the
idea. I would love to see that sidewalk go across people.
You and me both. And the other thought was, because we have just annexed a large portion of the available land in our urban growth boundaries, and I don't foresee any movement from anything down to the Dunn Road area, it may be worth our while to do a comprehensive look at usable land, usable buildable land.
How much did that cost you?
Yeah, I don't recall off the top of my head, but I remember when the COG came here and they had those numbers, so I'd have to get back to you with the numbers.
They're usually pretty big. They're like up there with the wastewater plant, everything other.
No, we were thinking it would be less than about $30,000. I may very well be wrong, but I don't remember it being hundreds of thousands. It was just a plan to look at which direction the city needs to go.
Would it be like commercial buildings? Is that what we're trying to evaluate?
They would take into account commercial, residential, industrial.
When they do the comp plan, they take in everything and figure out what our percentages that we're short and what our needs are. And then they figure that out and look at the property on the borders of the city limits to decide which way would be the best way to expand to get those needs.
Like a Lincoln?
So we can bring back more information, sidewalk information, comprehensive plan at the next meeting if you want to do that.
I think if we had some, that would be good, to figure out where our greatest need is.
Okay.
And align back to the city goals that we originally outlined, which would go back to, I think, the sidewalk. But yeah, if you guys can bring back in those, great. Let's go ahead and get those used. Okay, appearance of interested citizens. If not, okay, other city business?
I have one item that I want to bring up, and I think it was going to be discussed in July, but I was thinking about it some more, and I'm getting concerned because it's we're getting a lot of move-in and move-outs, but I want to get some clarification when we have move-in and move-outs on weekends. And what's happening is some people, forget to contact the city and get paperwork or whatever, so they call the non-emergency number and they get a hold of Public Works. And I think as a courtesy, Public Works has been turning the water on and allowing them to contact the city on the following Monday. My concern is that we have no paperwork that has signatures that authorizes the city to bill or whatnot, or squatters, or maybe there's something going on with the account that we've have an extensive amount of money outstanding. We usually don't turn the water on until it's paid in full. And so I kind of want to get your take on it, and I'm sure Mike, would like to chime in on that, and then you guys can make a decision if you want us to do something different.
Usually when that happens is it's new family moving to town, a new purchase of a new home. For whatever reason, they do not get a hold of City Hall and start an account before they actually move in. So we generally get a call on Friday going, hey, we're moving in this weekend. Is there a possibility we get water? As sort of a welcome to Hubbard type of a situation, we'll go and turn the water on with a caveat to them that if paperwork is not dealt with by Monday at 5 o'clock, we turn the water back off and put it back on. I just think it's better for welcoming somebody into the city. Yes, you can have it, deal with your paperwork, instead of, sorry, you can't get to it until Monday.
Has it ever backfired on us?
Yes. Julie, you want to chime in on that?
Well, I mean, we did have a case in, I believe it was January, with the water turned off. And I don't even know how I came about it, but like in February, I found out someone was living there and the water had been turned on. Well, no one knew who turned the water on. The guy didn't know if he turned the water on, Public Works or whatever. So he said, oh yeah, I'll get you an application. Well, the water was turned on, and it took me a while to get an application. And then we just had a situation this weekend. Unfortunately, the water, the people moved out, water was turned off. And then on Friday, they called, Matt Kennedy called and said, hey, I sold this house. Can you turn the water on? Well, so that was Friday. Well, I got the paperwork today or yesterday, and the people said, we didn't move in then. We didn't move in until Monday. But the water was turned on Friday. So I was like, okay, well, I mean.
So is the crux of the issue not necessarily turning it on, it's not getting the paperwork?
It's not getting the paperwork. I've always been told that's our city's legal document to bill.
Because it has their signature on
and
it,
Is there a means for us to, if we were to continue some like a policy like that, though, that they have to have the application mailed in, or not even mailed in, emailed in, or it can go to Melinda?
They can email it. Right now, they can email it, they can drop it off. They can, fax it.
And they get it off the website.
It's on the website.
It's on our application's on the
The
website.
application is on the website, the fillable PDF even.
Yeah.
So I guess what I would ask, Mike, I mean, is that an inconvenience to say, no, we can't turn this on? All you have to do is simply print this form out and hand it to the guy when he shows up, and it could be turned in, or better yet, I think it should be emailed in. I mean, if it's a paperwork issue, it's just.
But then again, there's nobody here on the weekends to verify that the paperwork's been sent in. So there they are.
Nobody's monitoring the email.
Yeah, and let me speak to both of those instances. The guy in February, 4th Street, we met him at the meeting that Rocky had down at the,
What are you talking about?
yeah.
Mhm.
For whatever reason, somebody turned that on. He says he didn't. Could have been him. It could have been his real estate agent. He moved in during the ice storm. Nobody was aware there was somebody living in that building until we did the meter reads in February. And that's one of the ones that she actually caught, because nobody's supposed to be here. Why did they use 6,000 gallons?
Right.
So we went out and did the investigation and found out that he was there. Let him know. And then it took him another week or so to get the paperwork sent in. Hindsight is, okay, we should have turned the water on. And you can have the water back on when you fill out the paperwork. The one over this weekend, yes, it was sent to us through Matt Kennedy. But I checked the water meter, the reading on the water meter, it was the same as it was that was taken on Friday when we turned the water on. So my point on that is, yes, we have 3 days there that we had no authorization to turn on the water, but you still have the reading of when you did turn on the water. So that's the reading you use when you fill out the paperwork gets filled out, and that's the reading you start using.
And my concern with that is you have somebody that's telling you to turn the water on that we have no paperwork that he's authorized to be telling you to turn the water on.
Hence the water
So-
bill back off on Monday at 5 o'clock. So it's something we've been kicking back and forth for a little while now.
I like to be nice, but I consider myself an average educated person. I know if I move into a new city, there's several things I have to do. One of which is I have to go to the city, find out what utilities I need to pay for and what account I need to set.
Yeah.
I also think that opens us up to that liability, whatever we call it. If on Friday they go out and say, hey, can you turn this on for me? I'm moving in. Some other person comes to the house, uses whatever they use in utility, and then we go and charge them for the 6,000 gallons of water that they use. And they say, we never moved in. We turned on water, we have no one to bill. I'm against doing that.
I guess the other liability we can also look at is the risk that you turn it on and there could be a busted pipe, there could be a faucet turned on inside. You don't know if it's occupied or not. I would rather us stick. It's hard because we also are closed on Friday. So how do we deal with the fact that, someone might be moving in on Friday, I think, and the city hall's open. So is there a workaround where at least we can have to put the application up? So that public worker, when they're going to turn on the water.
Well, so if somebody's moving in, they know they're not gonna, at the last minute on Thursday, go, oh, I'm moving in. I mean, you usually know, oh, gee, I need to get water, sewer, everything. Yeah, I'm gonna be in on that day. I need to make sure my electricity's,
So what do we do to maybe put it all online? To make it where they can fill the application online?
It is online.
Well, I mean, not like, can they fill it in and submit it and it triggers a turn on notice?
No, but the other thing is we need to make sure that when they do come in, that the account doesn't have an outstanding bill to turn the water on, because we don't turn the water on if there's an outstanding bill on the account.
So there's lots of caveats.
Typically, there's not, but there has been in the past. I mean, I've had an issue too with the squatter type situation. So, or somebody coming in and there was a death in the family or whatever, and they came in and said, I wanted it transferred over into my name. And when I said you needed the property owner, well, the property owner is dead. Well, do you have power of attorney? No, I don't. And they moved in over the weekend. And when really the girlfriend of 30 plus years or whatever was away and that was dad that passed away. And so they were trying to get us involved. So, I mean, there's a lot of legalities.
And I don't know what I don't know what the answer is. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
I want to be nice, but
Do we have a policy or business practice as far as opening up an account or turning on water, turning off water.
Yeah, it's, I mean,
And
the
what
code
does it say?
says, it's, you have the paperwork, you have to have the application.
Plain and simple.
Do we have something
We should follow it.
on the webpage that states, you need to submit it during this time?
I believe that we do. We'll double check
Double
that.
check that.
Maybe we can put just a splash thing on the homepage, maybe that says new to Hubbard, here's a checklist. Maybe it's water, cable,
Yeah.
the biggest thing is just, so maybe people will actually go to the website and look it up. I agree with Robert, if we have a policy, let's follow it. It's black and white.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know what the answer is to make it work for everyone, you know what I mean? And stuff. And I do have I had some people today, the gal moved out. Luckily it went back to the landlord, but they had said, oh, well, we moved in, last week. And I'm like, well, okay, well, no, because I'm just getting the paperwork now and it won't let you backdate like the reading type of thing. So I'm trying to figure that out.
I also don't want to see
And maybe-
utility worker put in that awkward position of being told.
And maybe we should put that on the page that, we can't backdate it.
Yeah, if it's
You need to get it ahead of time before you,
Yeah,
some statement like that on the page.
yeah.
Okay, I understand, we will, quit doing it from here on in.
People don't learn. They should learn.
Mayor,
I'm gonna,
Go ahead, James.
when a property is being sold, the homeowner is required to keep all utilities on until such time as it closes, which is usually 5 p.m. It's usually on a Friday to give the people time to move out, new people to move in over a weekend. So in the paperwork that they sign, they have to keep all utilities on for the entire time. So normally we instruct our clients to contact ahead of time and have it switched over at that 5 o'clock Friday or 5 o'clock Wednesday or whatever day it is, with the municipality where the house is being sold. So the understanding is, and for like the electricity, it's a simple phone call and they just press a couple buttons, and I know it's a little more detailed with water. In cases such as wood burn on a weekend, they just, I don't really know how if they prorate it for the weekend or if they do send somebody out and just takes a quick meter read. But definitely we want to make it as easy on city staff as we do somebody who's coming to our city. So.
Well, and I do like if someone's moving out, a lot of times what'll happen is someone says, I'm moving out, say June 11th, and then I'll get the paperwork for the people moving in. So if I have that, it's just as simple, you can leave the water on. You don't have to turn it off because you've got an in and an out right there. You know who you're going to bill it to. And that does happen. I mean, a lot of times people will give me, plenty of notice. So then exactly I can, okay, go read the meter and I'll say, leave the water on, have an application. We're good to go. It's just the people that don't always get it.
Do we ever contact any of the real estate agents around here, or when the house goes up for sale, saying, hey, when you sell this house, make sure you talk to both parties saying this is.
we don't know who the realtor is.
But a lot of times what I do tell them is, like, when someone calls and says they're moving out, I usually always say, okay, well, this is, if I don't have an application from the new owner, I don't want to be billed, so I will be turning the water off. And they'll go, oh, don't do that, let me contact them. I said, okay, you contact them. And if I get the application, let them know.
Right.
Or they'll contact the realtor, and then they'll contact me and get the application. And I'm like, okay, great. So every time someone calls and is moving out, I always tell them that, that this is what we will do unless I have an application.
So, and to answer your question, it is on that, it's in bold and it's underlined. If you're moving in over the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we recommend your completed application and deposit, if applicable, be submitted prior to the previous Thursday, as your service may not be connected until the following Monday. So it is on there.
Put little sirens in.
But But then you have to
I
get people to
still
go to the
think there'd be
website.
those people that would miss it.
Okay, any other city business? Okay, make a motion for adjournment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right.
Waiting for somebody else to say.
Take me second anyway.
So,
Yeah, so give it a second. I'll give it a chance.
It was James or Tyler. Hey, Mike, where's the, community garden?